Hello again. Hope everyone is having a wonderful day. We are live with our friends at American Express, and I'm going to share with you one of my favorite pantry staple recipes. These are my lemon bars, and the best part is that they use almond flour instead of all-purpose, just because I know it's like pretty difficult to find flour still. So this is kind of like that perfect summery, bright dessert for any time. Very excited. Let's get started. So I have all my ingredients here. Let me show you. This is the stuff for the crust and the stuff for the curd. So we have a cup and a half of almond flour. I'm just gonna throw in a bowl. Really, any flour blend will work with this ratio. Quarter cup of granulated sugar. You can use whatever you have. So if that means that you really only have like brown sugar, use brown sugar. If you like want to just swap in honey or a natural sweetener, that should probably work too. And then you always need salt. Salt is so important to any baked good. I always make sure that there's like a teaspoon of salt in any crust I do. But the secret ingredient in this is not only salt, but it is cured sumac, which is a dried berry, super common in Middle Eastern cooking. And it's just one of my favorite ingredients to pair with anything like bright and tart and citrusy, especially something like lemon. So it works really well in these lemon bars. So I'm gonna add that into the crust. Really, if you find it, use it. If you don't worry. The whole point is, like, during this time, be adaptable, customize to whatever you got. The last secret ingredient is brown butter. This is butter that I browned earlier. All you need to do is kind of throw it into a small saucepan over medium-high heat and cook it for about 6 to 8 minutes, whisking constantly till it becomes nutty in aroma. The milk solids caramelize and become this beautiful like brown specks, and I let it cool. So it's still like liquidy, but not like burning hot. We're just going to mix it together. The most important part is the little milk solids. The caramelized milk solids will always sink to the bottom. So you want to be sure to scrape out every bit of it. What I'm doing now is I'm just pushing this all together until a nice little smooth crust forms. So it's not going to kind of come together like a dough, but you want to like be able to like press it with your fingers and it pushes in and kind of holds its shape. Let me show you. Boop. When that kind of comes together, that's how we know that it's not too wet in the sense that it'll be soggy, but at the same point, it's going to bake up into a nice even crust. So I have an 8-inch square baking pan that I have aligned with parchment paper. What I do is I spray my pan with non-stick cooking spray, and then I line it with parchment, which allows it to kind of like stick to the pan flush. And then there's so much butter in this crust that you don't need to grease it anymore. It will come right out. I'm going to add in the crust, and we're gonna get that in the oven to par bake. This is a recipe that requires 2 types of baking, one of the crust and then one with the curd. So if you just added the curd directly onto the raw crust, by the time the curd was set, the crust would still be raw. You're gonna think you did something completely wrong, because take a look. Like, that does not look right. But all you have to do now is press it down with an offset spatula, and it will become nice and smooth. And then once it's like kind of pushed in, then we'll just go and just make sure it's super even, and you will be completely shocked by how different this looks than a second ago when you just saw it. So take a look. Beautiful, smooth crust. And now we're gonna bake it for about 15 minutes in a 350-degree oven that I preheated. I'm gonna pop it in, and then we'll get going on the curd. Medium saucepan. This is not a double boiler curd. I'm doing this straight on the stovetop. Gonna be low and slow. We're going to need eggs and sugar. I have a cup of freshly squeezed lemon juice, and then I threw in 2 teaspoons of the zest into this mixture. I don't like to keep it separate if it's both going into the same thing, because citrus zest can dry out. So I always like to keep it in the juice when possible. Helps infuse it better. Then we have a tablespoon of cornstarch with a little teaspoon of kosher salt at the bottom. And then finally, I have 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter that I've cubed up. That's gonna go in at the very end. So let's get started. We'll add in the eggs. This is 4 whole eggs and 4 egg yolks, which is just kind of like going to be what helps set a curd. And then we have 1.5 cups of granulated sugar. I'm going to whisk these two together just to kind of get started. The heat's not even on yet. I want to have this completely incorporated before I turn on the heat, just to prevent the eggs from like starting to set before we have a really, really well incorporated curd. So that's something that you're really going to need to take close eye on. The reason why I'm not just adding the lemon juice yet is I want to make sure to get the whites and the yolks super well incorporated, and the sugar is a little bit abrasive, so it's going to help doing that. So this is all in. I'm actually going to add in the salt and cornstarch now, get that incorporated before we add in the lemon juice. The cornstarch is what's going to help set this. Someone asked if you could use flour. Yes, the answer is you can. It's not going to be the same. I find that cornstarch just kind of sets a curd so much better, especially when you're dealing with something with so much. You would have to use a little bit more flour, and then it ends up tasting floury. That's the only way I can describe it. I do find that cornstarch is a bit more neutral. Once this is all smooth, which this is now, beautiful, we are going to stream in our lemon juice and zest. And again, this is also something that like you could customize. If you had a bunch of limes, you can make these into lime bars. You could use grapefruit, which is lovely. So it truly is something that is very customizable. And now I'm going to get this on the heat, and I'm going to put it down to medium. And we are just going to whisk it constantly on medium heat until it starts to thicken. It's going to take about 10 to 15 minutes. Something to keep in mind. So what you're afraid of is kind of overcooking the eggs, which is why you don't want to be using a high heat, because we don't want to scramble the eggs. That being said, when you look at your whisk, since we have lemon zest, it's going to stick to the whisks, so you cannot like freak out. Stay calm, because it's just typically lemon zest. You're not like overcooking your curd. You'll have to see your curd thicken before you can overcook it. You're gonna start to see this foam at the top. A key part is that we're constantly whisking to keep the flow. We want everything moving so that all the proteins and like the cornstarch can set and thicken and make it absolutely amazing. Again, you wanna make sure you're getting into the corners. Those are kind of like the parts of the pot that people neglect, and then they are exactly where you get those little scrambled egg pieces. I'm gonna say we're probably like 2 minutes out, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna start to see ribbons. The foam at the top is gonna start to disperse. All right, I'm gonna turn this off. I'm gonna pull out the crust. All right, we have our crust here. We have our thickened curd, so here. It's still not like thick, but what it is it's not watery. It's got some viscosity to it, so we are going to slowly start whisking in our butter. I'm just gonna throw in a few tablespoons at a time, and this is going to emulsify in. You do want cold butter, because that's gonna help start to cool the curd and thicken it, as well as just it emulsifies better. In this situation, I'm gonna keep whisking. And of course, this is off the heat now, because of the fact that I want to make sure that we do not separate the butter. And then I'm grabbing a fine mesh sieve. We are going to strain out the zest directly over the crust. Grab a spatula. I'm gonna start to make sure we get every ounce out. What this is going to do is ensure that the curd itself is super smooth, and at the same time, it's gonna take out all of the lemon zest. It's so nice and thick and gorgeous, and the cornstarch is gonna continue to thicken with the eggs in the oven. I'm just getting out every last drop, and that's how you ensure a nice, tall layer of curd, which is what we want. We want a lot of crust, but we want double the amount of curd to crust, always. What I'm going to do now is literally just shake the pan to make sure that it's even. And let me show you, and then we're gonna pop it back in the oven just for about 20 minutes to finish setting. This is what it looks like. Super, super gorgeous. Again, Every oven's different, so I always do it in batches. I'm starting with 15 minutes, I'm gonna take a look, and then from there I will go for another 5 to 10. This is going to be the jiggle you're looking for. This is what your lemon bars are gonna look like when they come out of the oven. They're not golden, they're not brown at the edges because we don't want that. We're looking for a really even color and just looking to set it so it kind of looks like Jell-O. Then you throw them in the fridge, chill them, preferably overnight. I always say like 2-4 hours is great for like getting a nice chill on it so you can slice it. But if you want those like picture perfect squares, overnight is the way to go. Then you just dust it with some powdered sugar and then some cured sumac, and it's going to look like this, which is so gorgeous. That's pretty much all in terms of the world of lemon bars. We also have a beautiful pantry plan page with American Express that is just so cohesive and beautiful with tips on how to stock your pantry. And it's just been one of our favorite ways to help empower people during this time. Your gold card can get you all of the groceries you need to make these exact same recipe, which you can find at thefeedfeed.com. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.